Karoline Leavitt was no stranger to high-pressure political debates. She had faced off against seasoned journalists, political operatives, and ideological adversaries countless times. But something about tonight felt different. The moment she stepped into the brightly lit studio, she sensed the shift in the air. The producers, usually bustling with energy, exchanged hurried whispers. The host, Rachel Monroe, a hard-hitting journalist with a reputation for ambush tactics, greeted Caroline with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Next to Rachel sat Ethan Keller, a staunch liberal commentator, and on Caroline's side, Mark Williams, a fellow conservative. The introductions were brief. Rachel wasted no time setting the stage. Caroline, you've often positioned yourself as a truth seeker, someone who stands firm against misinformation, she said, her voice calm but pointed. But tonight, we have some newly uncovered evidence that calls into question your past statements. On the massive screen behind them, a document appeared. The text was blurry at first, but one phrase stood out in bold letters: confidential testimony. Caroline felt the weight of the moment as Rachel continued. This document suggests that during the Trump administration, you personally recommended the removal of key documents, evidence that could have altered ongoing investigations. Caroline, do you believe you're above the law? A hush fell over the studio. The accusation was sharp, direct, and perfectly timed. Caroline quickly scanned the document, looking for something, anything, that would give her an opening to counter. But before she could respond, Ethan Keller leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. We've been saying for years that Trump's allies manipulate the truth, he said. Is this just another example of that? The trap had been set, and Caroline knew she had to navigate her way out carefully. The studio's atmosphere thickened as the seconds dragged on. Caroline wasn't just battling the panelists, she was battling the millions watching at home, waiting for her to stumble. She leaned slightly forward, keeping her expression neutral. Rachel, where did you get this document? Who authored it? Has it been verified in a court of law? Rachel Monroe maintained her polished composure. Our sources are highly credible. Caroline let out a quiet scoff. That's not an answer. If you're going to ambush me on live television, at least have the decency to present facts, not anonymous leaks. She turned to Mark Williams, the only other conservative voice on the panel. Mark, what do you think? Is this another case of the media manufacturing a scandal? Mark hesitated, clearly wary of how his response would be perceived. I think the source of this document needs to be verified. It's easy to take snippets of information and frame them in a way that fits a specific narrative. Rachel raised an eyebrow, her tone laced with condescension. So you're saying this is fabricated? Caroline met her gaze, her voice unwavering. I'm saying that the media has a history of selectively presenting information. You expect me to respond to a document that hasn't been vetted, hasn't been cross-examined, and conveniently appears at a time when the left is desperate for a new talking point? Come on, Rachel, even you can do better than this. Ethan interjected, his voice dripping with faux concern. You still haven't answered the question, Caroline. She exhaled, shaking her head. Because the question is built on a false premise. But I get it. This isn't about the truth. It's about spectacle. The camera zoomed in, capturing every micro-expression. Social media was already dissecting her reaction, but Caroline had been here before. She wouldn't crack. Not tonight. Caroline had spent years preparing for moments like this. She had learned that in the world of media-driven narratives, the best defense was a powerful offense. She sat back in her chair and smiled, a slow, knowing smile that threw Rachel off for just a fraction of a second. You know what's fascinating? Caroline said, crossing her arms. Every time a conservative stands their ground, the media rushes to discredit them. But when actual government corruption leaks, when undeniable scandals surface from the other side, you suddenly lose interest. Where was this level of scrutiny when key government documents went missing under past administrations? Rachel opened her mouth to respond, but Caroline wasn't finished. She turned to Ethan. You love talking about democracy and transparency. So tell me, where was your outrage when classified emails vanished? When media outlets buried stories that didn't fit their agenda? Oh, wait, I forgot. That wasn't politically convenient, was it? Ethan's expression hardened. You're dodging, Caroline. She laughed. No, Ethan, I'm exposing hypocrisy. The tension was suffocating. The audience wasn't just watching a debate anymore. They were witnessing a battle, and Caroline was gaining ground. The segment ended, but the war had just begun. As the cameras powered down, Caroline ripped off her mic and stood up, her heart still pounding. She had fought back, but the damage had already been done, or so she thought. Her phone vibrated relentlessly. Headlines were flooding in, but instead of the usual narrative of conservative downfall, something else was happening. Karoline Leavitt turns the tables on media ambush. Leavitt calls out, journalistic hypocrisy. Live on air, conservative firebrand, takes on liberal media and wins. A text popped up from an unknown number. We need to talk. Call me. She hesitated. The show had been a setup, but something told her that this message was different. She tapped the call button. A deep male voice answered after 2 rings. I saw the show. Caroline's pulse steadied. Who are you? The voice remained calm. Let's just say, I have the full version of that document, the part they didn't show. A slow, victorious smile crept across her face. Send it. Because this fight, it wasn't over. It was just beginning.